To me, discipline is just whether or not you want to do something, it's just putting forth those regular small efforts. And it doesn't even have to be the big effort. And that's what I find is, if you go full force at something and immediately wear yourself out, burn yourself out, that's not sustainable. So honestly, the best thing to do is just even if it's a small effort daily, before you realize it, you're gonna do a huge amount of work, and then that is much easier to build on.
Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach.
Okay, so today on the podcast, we have a very exciting guest who's on an incredible journey, Cortney Kangas. So, Cortney is currently training for the world's longest horse endurance race, the Mongol Derby. The race is over 600 miles through the Mongolian steppe and is designed to recreate the horse messenger system dating way back to the year 1224. The participants ride around 25 Mongolian horses over 10 days to complete the race. Courtney is actually one of my clients, and over the past year, we have been training pretty hard to get her ready for this crazy long endurance race. And she's actually getting ready to leave for Mongolia here in about a month. So, today we're going to talk about how Courtney has been training for this race and what her goals are for the race. And then when she gets back, we will have her on again to see how it went. So, Courtney, thank you so much for coming on with us today to talk about this. We're super, super excited. I think that this is going to be a great episode for our listeners. So, first, can you tell us why you even wanted to do this race in the first place? Like, where did the motivation come from?
The reason why I wanted to do it, one, I came across it just on Facebook and seeing pictures of the event, and the pictures when you see the openness of the steppe, there are no roads, there are no buildings, it's just the most incredible scenery. So that just right off the bat, when you see the pictures, you go to the Mongol Derby Facebook page and just look at it, it's incredible. I mean, I think the only thing I've seen, in the US that would remotely compare would be, remote areas of like Alaska or Wyoming or something like that. It's so stunningly beautiful. And then the other thing that was really inspiring to me was the horse culture there is so very, very different from the horse culture that we have here. And I'm primarily a dressage rider, and so, I'm a very type A type of person, and dressage, we kind of are very structured and ride, every single footfall and, we come across as, like, a very rigid, and it's exactly the opposite in that Mongolian horse culture. They really they view the horse as having their own spirit, and, they don't control the horse all of the time. They let the horse choose the gait, and, it's just kind of completely opposite, and so, that's what really inspired me to do it, and so I had applied, about 3 years ago and got the call last year, about a year ago, May of 2024. Interviewed and got accepted.
Which is incredible. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the race and how the selection process works and that sort of stuff? Because they only choose about 40 riders throughout the entire world every year to go and compete in this, correct?
Yeah, I don't really know how they, select people. I still to this day don't know how I got picked. So the race itself, it's 1,000 kilometers, and they call it the longest, toughest horse race in the world. And it takes place over the course of 8 to 10 days, depending on how quickly you can cover ground. And so you cover 28 different horse stations. So you'll eventually end up riding about 28 different Mongolian horses. And like you said, it's set up to recreate Genghis Khan's messenger system that he had to get messages across his vast empire. And the way the race is set up is we'll get over there, and there's going to be about 45 of us. And basically, we navigate ourselves. We won't find out the route until we get over there. Nothing is marked. We'll just have a GPS and a satellite beacon on us. And so we have to navigate ourselves from horse station to horse station. We don't have like one horse that we're riding because it's not endurance for the horse, it's endurance for the riders. And it's a test of our horsemanship and how well we can take care of these horses and get ourselves through this course. So we'll kind of like draw a number, and that number will match up to a hip number on a horse, and that'll be the horse that we ride. And all of these horses are chosen ahead of time. They're provided by the local herders out there on the steppe. They have a nomadic culture. These horses are vetted by a team of vets that come in from around the world, an international team of veterinarians. So they'll all be vetted in, and that'll be the horse that we ride. The saddles are made specifically for the Mongolian horses, and they're endurance saddles that are made by Franco C Saddlery. And we're limited in what we can weigh as the rider. We're limited in what we can bring. We can only bring 11 pounds of gear, and that is it for the whole trip. And so have to be very careful in how much gear we bring along. And the weight limit on the rider with everything that you wear, so including your helmet, your boots, your clothing, anything that you're going to wear on your body is 186 pounds or less, and that's for the welfare of the horse. So, when you draw that horse and you get on, when that start goes off, off you ride. It's 40 kilometers, so about 25 miles from station to station. And there's really pretty strict rules about, veterinary rules on, welfare rules essentially on how you can ride these horses. So when you ride them, they're not what we would consider very broke, here in the US maybe. And so a lot of these horses will buck, they'll bolt. The previous riders have told me, like when you get on, just be prepared to go because they may bolt for miles and you just need to go with it. But you have to manage them. And when you get into the next station, you'll vet them in, and within 30 minutes, they have to be at a heart rate of 56 beats per minute or less. No lamenesses, no rubs, no sores. If you violate any of that, it's a 2-hour vet penalty that you have to sit out. And, each time if you were to violate that, the penalties get much stricter and, longer penalties. And you only get very few times that you can get a vet penalty before they remove you from the race. And that's also for the welfare of the horse. So yeah, 28 different stations, and you can only ride from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. No riding overnight or anything like that. So most riders, it takes approximately, 8 to 10 days to finish the race.
Do you get to speak with the handlers at all to get some information on these horses? Or are you getting on blindly and then having to figure it out during that bolting session as to what to do?
Yeah, there's translators that are there. So the horses are provided by the herders that are there at that station, and they're generally really intensely proud of these horses. And so you could ask them if they will get on first, just to see like, can a human being get on that horse? Can it be ridden? Like is it capable of being ridden? And some of the herders will tell you like, this is my horse and this is what they like and this is what they don't like. It doesn't guarantee that, you may have the smoothest ride with that horse, but yeah, you can have the translator ask questions.
How do you mentally prepare for getting on just horses that may or may not be broke?
Well, they're technically all broke. They're just not maybe just not what we would consider broke over here. So I definitely over this past year, mindset training has been like one component of my training. And, just to help me with like, getting through this year in general. One thing that I have done that's helped me a lot is ride a big variety of horses. And so I've tried to make sure that I've ridden some horses that are a little bit stronger, some horses that are a little bit more sensitive. When I went to an intensive, rode some horses that spooked and spun. And funny, I had my husband build me a bucking barrel. And so I have my husband and son sometimes they'll do the bucking barrel for me. So,
which
but
is awesome.
I'm not quite sure how I can mentally prepare for that. But I try to just try to get as many different experiences as I can, and so that I can kind of calmly react to those situations.
Yeah, so obviously we'll get deeper into the actual workout side of it. Like we'll get really into, how we've been training you and how we've been preparing you and that sort of stuff. But just tell us like what your training has looked like for the past year, like what your daily life, what your schedule week to week has kind of looked like.
Yeah, I when I told you, I'm very type A, I'm also a full-time small animal veterinarian, and so I'm in the clinic full-time, working 40 hours a week, and so I'm having to come home and schedule my horse riding and my working out and everything around that full-time schedule. So, in the beginning, I kind of looked at what do I need to do to prepare for this race, and I broke everything down into, just different things that I would have to train for to prepare. So, I broke it down to physical fitness, the horseback riding, the mindset training, navigation training, and then the gear. And so, the physical fitness, I got in touch with you. And so, I got you to help me with setting up my daily like workout routine. I do a little bit of mindset training. I do that like when I get up in the morning. And then horses, I ride usually 4 days a week, and that's about as honestly as much as I can do with my work schedule. So, a a normal day for me looks like, getting up in the morning, because I live at home on a small farm. So, getting up in the morning and getting ready for work, I sit down, I do a very short little mindset training for the day while I'm drinking a little coffee and eating breakfast, and then it's getting all the animals fed and driving to work, and then I come home from work and get my workout in. And then if I have 1 day a week that I have, like, a shorter work day, and so on that shorter work day and then my weekends, that's when I get my horse riding in and, the other things in.
Such a crazy schedule.
It's long days.
It is long days. So, one of the things that has always really impressed me about working with you, Courtney. So, we've been working together for about a year, and your dedication to success is something that I've just always kind of been in awe of how hard you're willing to work. And you're inspiring. You really truly are. I use you as, I don't know if you know this, but I use you as an example all the time for my other clients. People will have excuses about their schedule or just their life being crazy and all that stuff. And while I am sympathetic to that, and I do understand that, in the back of my mind, I'm always kind of thinking, I'm like, well, but then, there's people like Courtney that are so crazy busy and somehow you've managed to fit all of this in. So can you elaborate a little bit on like where that motivation came from and where your hard work came from and how you kind of push through on the hard days when you maybe don't want to work out or maybe don't want to go ride and all that. Like how do you get through kind of the hard days?
Eh, my background is, I'm a former Marine, and so, discipline has kind of been drilled into me a little bit. But the other thing is, I will be the first to tell you, like, I'm not, like, innately talented in anything, like, I just was never one of those people that just was, like, physically talented or anything like that. What I'm very good at is being persistent. That's the one thing that I'm just very good at. And so to me, discipline is just whether or not you want to do something, it's just putting forth those regular small efforts. And it doesn't even have to be the big effort. And that's what I find is if you go full force at something and immediately wear yourself out, burn yourself out, that's not sustainable. So, honestly, the best thing to do is just even if it's a small effort daily, before you realize it, you're going to do a huge amount of work. And then that is much easier to build on. So, even when I'm tired, that's why like when I do the mindset, like I plan for it to be a small session, and it's just putting that in on a regular basis and letting that build on itself because everybody will tell you I think that, yeah, you can have talent, but the most talented people in the world, generally aren't like the most successful. It's the people that just put in the regular work.
I would definitely agree with that. So like when we very first started working together and anytime that I'd give you like a new type of exercise or that sort of thing cuz we've changed your plan a lot over the last year. Like it was just kind of constantly changing and whenever I'd give you something new, you'd like kind of struggle with it a little bit, but then the next
And
time that I saw you, you'd like have it down. So pretty much over the last year I've seen Courtney once every 3 weeks. So I don't see her it's not like I see her multiple times a week every week. So she progresses a lot in between each time that I see her, and each time that I see her, we're not even necessarily doing the same workouts every time. So she's got like an upper body workout, a lower body workout, a mobility workout. She's doing like plyometric training. Like she has a bunch of different types of workouts. So it might be like a couple months before I see her do her upper body workout again. And so every time that I, saw you doing your new things, I'd be like, "Wow, like, you've made so much progress from the very first time that we saw you do this exercise," and so that's always been really cool to see. It's just that like, I'd give you something challenging, and you would almost, like, make it a point to be like, "I'm gonna be, like, proficient at this by next Tuesday." You know what I mean? So that's something that I've always really, really appreciated about working with you is that you look at hard things and you instead of kinda shying away from them, you've always stepped up to the plate. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it was like being in the Marines and how that prepared you for this adventure?
Yeah, I spent 8 years as an active duty Marine, and I was an administrator, so that was back in I went in 1999 and got out in about 2007. I loved being a Marine. Yeah, that was my kind of first experience leaving home. I came from a big family I'm the oldest kid. I have 5 younger brothers. I'm the only girl, so getting to leave home and a little bit of independence and not having to stay home and watch a bunch of little brothers was great. But for me, being a Marine really gave me a lot of confidence in myself, because they really do, for me, they instilled that ethos that, everybody is a leader and that you really lead by example. And then, of course, like I said, the discipline. And so, yeah, I really took that seriously, that you do really lead by example and that you should always be an example to other people. Yeah, and honestly, it was just fun. I enjoyed it. So I did 8 years active duty, and then I got out. I got out so that I could go back to school and become a veterinarian. I have a tendency to just kind of do things like pick big things and be like, I'm just gonna go do that now. It drives my husband crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I bet. But I'm sure that's one of the reasons why he married you is because, you're so driven and you wanna work so hard. So, it's a catch-22. Hi, everyone. It's your personal trainer, Ellie. If you're looking to become a stronger, more balanced, and flexible rider, I'm here to help. I offer virtual personal training sessions and customized workout plans that you can complete on your own. As a fellow competitor, I understand the physical demands riding requires, and my goal is to help you perform your best for your horse, whether you're preparing for a show or just want to improve your everyday rides. Visit lopendowntherailfitness.com or click on my website tab in the notes of this podcast episode to learn more. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
Are you looking for that extra competitive edge, struggling with show pin anxiety, or looking to set and achieve meaningful goals with your horse? Schedule a session with me, Lauren, your dedicated mindset coach. As an experienced competitor, I understand the mental demands required to excel at the highest level, and am here to support you in building a plan to help you stay accountable and reaching those goals. For more information, check out laurencervelli.com or click on the website link in our show notes. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
So let's talk a little bit about your workouts and how they've changed over the last year. So right
Mhm,
now, you're currently doing upper body once a week, lower body twice a week. You're doing
mhm.
plyometrics once a week. You're doing mobility once a week, and then you're hiking and riding. What you like 4 to 5 days a week?
Yeah, so I hike, every once in a while, I'll do a run instead, but yeah, I've got lots of hills around here, so I'm lucky I can get in some good hikes, and then I ride, and every time that I ride, I try, if I can, to kinda get multiple horses in, so I'll ride, like at least 2 horses, maybe 3 horses if I can, if it's not too hot or there's not, another thunderstorm rolling in because 'cause we've had a lot of storms this summer. So, yeah, it's, pretty much every day is active, yeah.
Yeah, super, super active, which is great. So, when we very first started working together, we were mainly like, I mainly just wanted to get your body ready for high intense exercise. So, obviously, you being in the Marine and correct me if I'm wrong, you had a background in weight training, like way before we started working together, correct?
I have, yeah, I was not, very active at the time that I got in
Yes.
touch with you, though,
Yes.
because I had had some issues with, I needed surgery on a veins, right before I had gotten in touch with you, so, I had been going through some issues with, some chronic pain and then surgery, so at the time I got in touch with you, when I started this whole thing, gosh, I was at the very beginning of this journey, I was, I think, like 190 pounds. And yeah, just how active I am right now in the strength training. I've lost like 50 pounds over this last year. And
Which is
it's
incredible.
not, yeah, and it wasn't for the goal of losing weight. My goal was to become strong.
Yeah. Yeah. So we started off because you had kind of been out of working out and just being physically active with all the things, other things that you had going on for a while. But obviously, I knew
Mhm.
that you had been way stronger before. And so I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to get you back to that point. But I wanted to make sure that we were building your body for the long term, not for the short term. And that's something that I do with
Right.
all of my clients, but with you in particular, because we had a year to train, a little over a year to train for this race. And that I felt like was a great amount of time to be like, okay, in the beginning, let's take things slow. Let's really work on your mobility in a couple key areas. So I remember when we very first started working together, like you had decent balance, but you were definitely weaker, like on the left side of your core, and your right leg was quite
Mhm.
a bit weaker, and you had tight calves. And there was just a couple other areas that we needed to work on specifically to build a strong base of support. So that's what we worked on for a while. And then eventually we started getting, well, you were strength training then as well, but I think we were
Yeah.
just doing full body at that point. We weren't doing upper
Right.
and lower. So when we very first started working out, I think you were supposed to do your mobility stability routine, which was about 15 to 30 minutes, about 4 days a week. And
Okay.
then you were strength training about 30 to 45 minutes after work, 4 days a week. So you were pretty active before and after work. And then
Mhm.
eventually at some point, you got injured. You hurt your knee back in like December or something like that. So can
Oh,
you,
it was a couple of injuries.
yeah, you had a couple injuries because then you hurt your
Yeah.
glute. Like you've had a couple small injuries along the
Yeah.
way that we've had to work through.
Yeah, I fell off my horse. I
Yeah.
have I have fallen off of horses more this year than I have in the past decade. Yeah, so I fell off my horse and tweaked my knee, and then somewhere in there, I also got a pretty wicked cold too, the sinus infection after my half marathon.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so we kinda had to work through those, and luckily, because we'd built that strong base, I think that that really helped you get right back into the swing of things, like, whenever you had these little injuries or sicknesses, like, it did not take you very long to get back to where you were. And that
Yeah.
was by no accident, that was part of how I created your program was to, if something did happen like, injury prevention was always the number 1 goal throughout your entire training process. I wanted to make sure that when Cortney was out in Mongolia, that if she got bucked off a horse, she hopefully wasn't going to walk away with like a broken ankle or a broken arm, things like that. So I really, really wanted to make sure that injury prevention was the number 1 goal. And so, a couple, maybe like 6 to 8 months ago, I can't remember exactly when, but we switched you from doing full body to doing, the split that we're doing right now, which is like the upper body and then the lower body. And that was just to start strengthening those pieces independently to start getting those pieces a little bit stronger. It felt like we built a good full body base, with good coordination. So that way we could start working on independent parts a little bit more. And so we started doing that. You progressed through that beautifully. I was super, super happy with that. And something that I did with you that I don't typically do with a lot of my other clients, because most of my clients, do the Western all around events. And there's nothing that's super intense about doing the Western all around. It's more about control and balance and stability and that sort of stuff. But, you do a lot of endurance riding for this race. And for this race specifically, I knew that we had to increase your cardio. So we did a
Okay.
hit workout for a while, which I know you didn't love, but you did it anyway. So HIT stands for the high intensity interval training. So basically, it was a short bursts of high intense exercise over I'd say the workout probably was about 30 minutes long, plus a warm up and a cool down. And then once Cortney got better at that, I kind of wanted to take that part off. I didn't want her to be doing that a whole ton, just because there is a little bit of an added injury risk for that. So that's why we weren't just doing hit training, and we actually stopped doing it. I want to say maybe like 3 or 4 months ago. I can't remember exactly
Wow.
when,
It's
but
been a
we have.
while.
Yeah, but we have not been doing that one recently. And that's like I said, I just wanted to build her cardio up. But then, these past couple months right before she left, really, really just making sure she's not going to get injured. But what we did do is we replaced that high intense interval training with a plyometrics workout. So, plyometrics is going to be teaching your body how to absorb force. So, like I said, if Courtney got bucked off or something happened, I wanted her body to have really good shock absorption of hitting the ground hard. So her plyometric training, it's a lot of jumping and a lot of balancing type exercises. And so she's been doing that hard for a couple months now. And it's actually been a while since we've talked about that workout specifically. How is that workout going now compared to when we very first started it?
Yeah, I love that workout. It's fun. It's hard. It's really hard, but it's a lot of
Yes.
fun. And that one actually is been the most useful, just like in my
Yeah.
everyday like riding, because getting out and riding out in the fields, and I ride a little pony because she'll be like derby horse size, and she's kind of spooks at some things out in the field. And so that's been good because when she does spook, it's kind of easy to just kinda go with her, because of all this jumping around that you've got me doing. And then, when I ride another little Arabian and been doing some galloping, with her, and we had one nice little gallop, and, she got out and she just randomly, pulled up super short, just hauled up to a stop out of nowhere because she saw something on the ground, and then was like, "Oh, that was nothing," and then she jumped off into a gallop again. And, the core that I've put on, and then just the ability to absorb those forces, I was just able to stick with her the whole time, and off we went, and it was such a non-issue. So, that's a really useful workout when you're out there doing that kind of stuff. So, be great for, like, eventers and
Hmm.
endurance riders and people that just wanna get out, and do trail riding and just ride out in the open. Um, So I love that workout.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great workout. Like I said, it's not something that I do super often. I'm mainly working on lower intensity exercises with most of my clients. So, training you for this race, there were trial and errors, throughout the whole workout process. So, thank you for sticking with me and trusting and believing in me throughout this whole process. It's been quite a feat trying to get somebody ready for a 10-day long endurance race. I mean, that's just yeah. So you're actually the second person that I've trained for this race. I was working with somebody a couple of years ago and we were training for it, and she actually ended up needing shoulder surgery, so she actually did not get to go compete. And I was really sad because I actually really enjoyed doing something a little bit different, right? Because this is very different from what I normally do with my clients. And right around that time was when you reached out to me, so I was actually really excited to get to train somebody else. So if when we release this podcast episode, if somebody's listening to this and is going to Mongolia, I would love to help train you. It's actually been a really, really fun process that I've enjoyed more than I thought I would. It's been quite a challenge as a coach, but I really, really have enjoyed it. And it's really cool because you have made so much progress. And I feel like you've achieved every little goal that you've set. And I mean, you're leaving here in about a month, and I feel like you're about as prepared as we could have gotten you. I am super, super pleased with where you are physically. So, can you talk a little bit more about, obviously you talked about how the plyometrics has been helping you, but can you talk a little bit more about how the workouts themselves have helped you along this journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much, regardless of how the derby goes for me, it just what I've gotten out of this year alone will be worth it. You really don't think until you get this fit, like how much it really can improve your riding. It's incredible. So just how many different types of horses I can ride now, and just being able to stay with them and, cueing them is just a lot more clear. The fact that I can, go out and say a horse spooks or, just something silly, it's so much less of an issue when you've got the fitness to just, stay with your horse and, have a core, where the horse takes off running and they get really strong with you when you have the core strength to stay up as they take off running when they're getting really strong and they're pulling on you when you're out running in a field or, something like that. Um, it's really nice to have that fitness, and it makes you really realize why, like, say, jockeys that race thoroughbreds, like, why they work out as hard as they do, because you need it. You really do need it. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about a little bit about how we're preparing you this very last month leading up to the race. So, like I mentioned earlier, Courtney is still going to be doing her weight training pretty much the same for the next couple weeks, and then the last couple weeks before she leaves, we're gonna change things up just a little bit. This last month, throughout, like I said, this whole process has been about injury prevention, but especially in these last like 6 weeks. So you leave July 28th, which is at pretty much a month from right now. So we talked about starting the week of July 13th, so right about 2 weeks, and to have a week of lighter weight. So that week, I'm going to go into her workout plan. I'm going to take down the reps. I'm going to take down the weight. I'm just going to make it a little lighter. That way, she is still getting the benefits of the strength training, but it's a little easier on her body. Like, we're really focusing on her recovery at this point being as optimal as we can get it. She's really going to focus on her mobility. We're going to take out that plyometric training about 2 weeks before she heads out, just to, again, make sure because she's built up that strength now and it won't hurt her physically to take that out 2 weeks before she goes. And I do not want her getting injured jumping around. So that's why we're going to take that out. And then while she's in Mongolia, she has a pre-ride stretching routine that she's hopefully going to be able to do every day before she gets on.
Mhm.
And that's just to get her body as ready for the day as we can get it. So hopefully it should only take her about 5 or 10 minutes. It's exercise that she's really familiar with, that we've been doing all along throughout her process, just to get her mind, get her body in the zone, ready to hop on that horse that's hopefully not just going to take off with her. And then we also created a stretching routine that is probably only going to take her about 15, maybe 20 minutes. And we went through that together about a week or two ago. And I just wanted to hit a bunch of the areas that I knew were probably going to get sore, going to get kind of tight. Any of the areas that she already struggles with soreness and tightness, we added those in. So that is hopefully going to help her body get prepared for the next long day of riding. So hopefully she'll be able to do that every night before she goes to bed. It's going to be long days. I won't be upset with you, Courtney, if you miss a day or two, but I really, really do want you to try to, get that in as much as possible. And then we talked about, you getting as much sleep as possible before you leave, making sure that you're fueling, eating a lot of carbs, a lot of protein, not a lot of processed food, really just trying to prepare, body as much as you can before you leave. So, are you doing anything outside of this normal routine? Are you changing anything or doing anything extra this last couple weeks before you go?
No, I'm not really doing anything different. I mean, at this point, I don't think I'm one of those people that don't really like to change anything at the end because I don't think there's really anything that I could add in that would suddenly make a huge difference. So at this point in time, with the riding, I'm also tapering down. I'm not adding anything in that would be. I'm trying to not ride anything that would get me hurt. With the fitness, also trying not to get hurt. So yeah, no major changes. The food over there is gonna be primarily like protein and dairy. So I do kind of need to get used to that. There's really not a lot of vegetables or fruit or anything. So I'm trying to get used to that a little bit.
Yeah. Can you tell us about, I think they were called riding intensives, correct? Those clinics that you would go
Yeah.
into? Yes. Can you tell us a little bit more about the riding intensives and what those were for and how those helped along this journey?
Yeah, so it's a place called Stable Riding up in Ohio, lady named Solange, and she's wonderful. So she's trained several other Derby riders that have gone over and successfully made it through the Derby and through like the Gaucho Derby as well. And so that I went once last year and then again this year, and so what it was 3-day riding intensive. This was basically like a huge clinic condensed down into 3 days. And I liked her because, she had what she called the lab, which was, she had, one of the equicizers, and she had a Mighty Bucky, which is a bull riding simulator that it does a bucking motion and a belly roll motion, and so you can kind of practice, like, getting bucked and getting, reared with, but it also was really useful because they can do some finer motion that would where they can practice your hips going with the motion of the horse. They can help you through with things like that. And so we would work, for say like an hour in the lab, and then I would go over and get on a horse. And, it was essentially like 3 days of going back and forth from the lab to the horse, to the lab to the horse. A lot of work with no stirrups or bareback. Very, very defensive position when I rode with her. So, really kind of sitting back. So probably, not the typical riding position, especially not the riding position that you see like English riders in, but a riding position that when you're riding a smaller horse, these Mongolian horses, they have very, very short necks. And one of the big dangers, one of the big hazards out there are a lot of marmot holes that are out on the steppe, and one of the big injuries that can take riders out is if they get too forward on these horses. The horse can step into a marmot hole. And, if you're too far forward and the horse steps in a marmot hole, off you tumble over the front of the horse. And so, she's worked with a lot of these riders and, staying back in a bit more of a defensive position, which also helps, when they buck. But also worked with me on, riding horses that she's a horse that rears on command. So got to work on riding through rears and riding horses that, spook and spin. And and then just lots and lots and lots and lots of riding with no stirrups, no saddle, things like that. So yeah, I did that twice. I went back the first time, or I went the first time, and then I went back about a year later, and the difference was pretty incredible, just to, from the first time to the second time. So it was very helpful.
Does she help you also prepare like the packing and supplies list for that 11 pounds that you're granted extra?
No, no, she just does the training for the riding portion of it. The packing, gear lists, a lot of us will just get in touch with, like, other riders that have previously gone to do the derby. So when I first got accepted, I have a classmate that went to vet school with me that knew another rider that had gone to the Derby. There's a equine vet down in the Ocala area named Dr. Tiffany Atterbury, and she successfully made it through the Derby a couple of years ago. And so she said, "Oh, I know her. She's a really nice person." And she got in touch with her and, asked, "Can I put Courtney in touch with you?" And she said yes. And so I got in touch with her and she gave me a ton of information about, how to prepare and what I might need. She helped me out with like gear and how to train navigation wise. And so she was really helpful. And then, other riders will do that. And so sometimes we'll kind of like share gear lists and things like that.
What's on your gear list at the moment?
Oh, well, I'm in the process of refining that, but at this point, I have a very, very small first aid kit that's, basically like a small amount of like bandages, blister bandages and things, some water purification tabs, electrolytes. I've got some emergency medications just in case, some like nausea meds and things like that. I have the clothes that I'll wear plus like one change, and that's about it. Sunscreen, chapstick, bug spray, some batteries for my GPS, and then a set of raincoat and bottoms. I'm gonna take a GoPro, so GoPro and the battery, and
Yeah.
then the yeah, I do. I want to get some footage of it. A very, very ultralight sleeping bag. Trying to decide if I'm gonna take the mat or not because it takes up a lot of space, but it's a very limited list. Toothbrush, very small hygiene kit, some wet wipes. Yeah, so it's small. It's a small list. There's only so much space and only so much weight.
What about your foam rolling ball?
Yes, I gotta find room for that too.
Yes.
See, that's why the sleeping mat night might not make.
So one thing that I really, really, really want Courtney to have while she's there is there's these. So she uses a foam roller all the time just to help with recovery, and so you can get this little ball. You can use a tennis ball, but honestly, I prefer something that has a little bit more grip on it and is a little smaller. Um, and that's just in case Courtney gets really sore on a specific muscle and she needs a way to like roll it out. So you can bring a little travel size ball. That way, hopefully, she doesn't need it. But if she doesn't have it, I don't want her to be wishing that she did. So, and luckily, they're really small. So hopefully, you can find room.
Yeah, it's really tight. That pack is really super tight.
Yeah.
Because that is, now that we've got the packs, the first time I tried to shove everything in there, I weighed it. I was at 14 pounds, and I was
Oh
like, "Oh
no.
no, oh no."
Oh
So I
no.
went through and refined and come in pretty close on weight now, but it's not a lot of room in there. But I've got the pack, and then I've been doing, essentially what I call like dress rehearsals, where I put because I got the saddle ahead of time, so I could practice riding in it and get comfortable with it ahead of time. You don't have to get the saddle ahead of time, but it's just something that I wanted to do because I typically normally only ride in a dressage saddle, so, I just wanted to do that. But so I've been, like today I went out and I attached the full saddlebag, stuff full to the saddle, and went out and rode because that's one thing is those horses are not accustomed to having, like, saddlebags and stuff on them. So I kinda wanna be prepared, like, to know how to attach that saddlebag, like, as tight as possible so that it doesn't flap and bounce and everything. Because that is one thing that could set them off and have them, kind of buck and rear is if they've got strange things on them that are flapping and bouncing around.
Yeah, we don't want them to get scared by the gear, that's for sure. Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. I wanted to take a moment to thank our very first gold sponsor, Hobby Horse Clothing Company. If you're looking for a cost effective way to elevate your look at the horse show, check out what Hobby Horse has to offer. From budget friendly crystal jackets to simple show shirts to stylish lifestyle tops, Hobby Horse has everything you need to look your best. Make sure you use code EYR2025 for an additional 10% off at checkout. Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to Elevate Your Ride. We're so excited to continue helping you elevate your performance in the saddle. To keep bringing you quality content and information, we're asking you to help us. Tell your friends about us on our podcast, like and share a meaningful quote you saw on our social media, write us a review on Spotify or Facebook. You can also join our Facebook group and ask all your health and fitness questions, or maybe post a success story to motivate another amateur. Your engagement really helps us support and encourage the equestrian community. We're also inviting sponsors and supporters to help us build our show. As a sponsor, starting at just $150, you'll receive marketing on our podcast, website, and growing social media platforms for your business. It's the perfect way to connect with the equestrian community and showcase your brand to our dedicated listeners. And for our supporters, your $50 contribution gets you a shout out on our social media and website. Every bit of support really helps fuel the show and helps us inspire and motivate equestrians. So, if you're interested in learning more about that, you can scroll down to the show notes of this episode and look for the Become a Supporter or Become a Sponsor links and click on those to get some more information. Thank you for listening. We can't wait to continue expanding our platform and helping you elevate your ride.
Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. Are you loving our show and looking for a way to show your support? Check out our line of Elevate Your Ride merchandise. From stylish t shirts to cozy hoodies to journals and hats, we have everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Ready to gear up? Click on the Buy Our Merchandise Here link in the podcast notes, or head on over to our website, elevateyourride.co, and click on the Store tab. Thank you for your support. Make sure to like, follow, and share our platform with your friends.
So, one thing I want to talk about is over the past year, there's always going to be setbacks toward the goal and that sort of stuff. And there's always going to be things trying to throw you off your game plan a little bit. So, the last couple months, you've kind of had a lot going on personally, and there's been a lot of changes. So, can you talk about how you've not let those changes get in your way?
Yeah, I've got my son, my only child, who will be leaving me, so I'll be officially an empty nester. He's moving halfway across the country to Texas. So that's for me is like such a big change. So, I'm trying to spend these in fact, he leaves me in like 2 days.
Yeah.
So trying to spend some time with him. But what's really neat in this is that, I think this is the first time he's called, he said that I'm cool since he's been like 12 years old. And the other thing is that he has been so supportive. So I told you he, did some bodybuilding when he was like 17. And so he really into strength training, weightlifting, and he still really enjoys strength training. And so, he's really funny because he'll see me in the house and see me working out, and he'll be like, "All right, mom, did you get your workout in? You got to make sure you do this because you are an athlete. You need to remember that you're an athlete. You need to make sure you're eating right." So he's always telling me like, like, "No joke, mom. You actually are. You're an athlete." So it's that's one thing is he's just been very encouraging for me. So, but it's hard. He'll be gone, but just knowing that, he's just been so encouraging and, that he's been in my corner, it's like I can't let him down. So, I've got I've got to continue to put that work in. For him because he is pushing for me to do this. He is in my corner. So yeah, I couldn't let him down. And then, I've got my mother has developed Alzheimer's over this past year, and so she has progressed to the point of being in a full-time facility, and so that's also kind of a difficult thing. So those things will kind of mess with your mind a little bit. But she was also very excited, and it's funny because I go down, to visit her. She's only a couple hours away from me. They lived in Alabama, and so she still recognizes me, and she still remembers that I'm going over to the race. So when I go to visit her,
Aw.
I'll say like, "Oh, yeah, my race is coming up soon," and, she'll smile and she'll go, "That's right, you're going to Mongolia." And,
Aw.
so she remembers that right now. So, that's, yeah, I know that those things are difficult and they have been emotional things for me, but although they are and they've been a source of stress for me, I can't really just stop doing things because, you know, it means a lot to me to not let my loved ones down.
I love that. And I think that's really special that you can do this just as much for yourself as you are like for them and being inspired by the things that they're going through to push yourself to the next level.
What are your goals for this race, Courtney?
Just to stay in it.
I mean, a lot of people don't finish.
Yeah, yeah. So in endurance racing, which I actually haven't done an endurance race yet, but I've been wanting to, and I've been following along like with the endurance racers, but the American endurance ride folks say to finish is to win. And that's kind of like their mindset. And that's kind of like my take on this. It's such a huge thing and there's no prize for this. You don't win anything. This is your prize is like you did it. Congratulations. You get bragging rights. So that my goal is really just to stay in the race. I think a goal that I'd really like is to be able to take really good care of my horses and not get a vet penalty. That's, I really wanna be conscientious of them and make sure that, I am riding them well and putting that horsemanship first, and, I think that's a big challenge when you're out there in a strange place and you don't have a huge amount of control over them, and, as even over here, even in an arena, when it comes to horses, anything can happen at any time. I feel like horses, you can put them in a bubble wrap stall and they can still like find a bucket handle and, you know, give themselves a huge laceration, and so over there is things can just happen. They can step in a marmot hole. They can, say, you never know. But that's another goal of mine is, to take really good care of them and hopefully not get any vet penalties. So that and finish is ideally what I would like.
Is there anything that you're nervous for about the race?
Yeah, lots of things.
Let's hear them.
It's you're always nervous, about am I gonna stay on? Am I gonna get over there and it's just gonna be just too crazy for me? I feel like right now that that I'm ready though. I guess that the navigation, yeah, I don't think I'm too nervous for that, because that's something that I actually did do in the Marine Corps. So that's not new to me, and I did refresh on it, and practiced with that again.
Can
But
I know you
you know,
touched on that earlier, but can you explain that a little bit more? Like, it's not like there's a path that you're following.
Right, correct. Yeah. So basically we won't know what the course is until we get over there. So once we get over there, once we all get together, they'll unveil the course to us like all at the same time, and we'll get like a Garmin GPS unit, and that will have the horse station's GPS coordinates pre-plugged into it. And so what your job as the rider is to navigate from horse station in the correct order and make your way through the course. And so there's no lanes, there's nothing laid out for you. It's just wide open expanse. And so you've got to get yourself from point A to point B in the correct order. So it's kind of like the old Pony Express type of thing. And the only thing that you have, and I think they give you like a paper map that you can use as well. So you have like a paper map and a GPS unit. And that's kind of, when I was researching this for a couple of years and like reading other writers' blogs that they would post afterwards, inevitably you see some people that, you know, they haven't really like know how to do the navigation beforehand, and they'll kind of look at, the GPS unit, and they're like, "Oh, there's the next horse station." And they'll see the line on the GPS unit, and they'll go, "Okay, there's the line. I'm gonna ride in a straight line from here to there." They'll kinda just go as the crow flies, and they do things like, when they do that, they're not realizing, like, you're going up over a steep hill, or you're going through, you know, deep boggy marshes and things like that. And instead of, had you taken maybe a longer route around, you would have been on flatter lands, and you would have skirted those very steep hills or gone around that marshy area. And so it's making those navigation choices that are maybe in the best interest of your horse, because if you're riding up over very steep areas, you're going to gas your horse out. It's going to be a lot more physically difficult for them. They're not going to be able to conserve their energy. So it's knowing how to read a map and the contour lines and things like that, and make those choices about, how to navigate yourself.
Yeah. Sorry, before I interrupted you, you were talking about other things that you were maybe nervous about.
Oh, yeah, I think, a little bit the aspect of like, the camping out, and, how do I, am I going to make it to the horse stations in time? Because that's the thing is like at the end of each day, because you only have certain hours that you can ride during the day, and it's usually like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so, like if you're not at a horse station, your choices for where you can sleep for the night is you can either like camp out, or you can, if you find like a local herding family, you can ask them if you can stay with them. So that's kind of one of those things like, am I going to get stuck out in the middle of somewhere? Because sometimes, like when riders like camp out, sometimes even though like you hobble your horse for the night, some of the horses are really good at wearing hobbles, and riders will lose their horses in the middle of the night, and then they have to go like find their horses, and they're like walking for miles and miles trying to find them. So I'm nervous about like, losing a horse, or you're nervous about injuries, things like that. So yeah, I mean those are the things that I'm just nervous about, injury, losing a horse, where am I gonna end up each night, things like that.
You had mentioned before that you had been doing some mindset training daily. What does that look like?
Um, yeah, so I have used a program that is called Trident Mindset, and it just appealed to me because it had came from like a um, folks that were also like prior military, which is why I liked it. But it's set up where it's like a different subject monthly that they broke it down into. So they would go over a different subject kind of like every month. So there would be like a month about discipline and a month about one they called like choosing the wrench, which was like, choosing the more difficult option, even though maybe something else would be easier. This last month that I just finished was on meditation, which was actually incredibly helpful because it was not just like meditation, sitting in a quiet place with eyes closed, but it was actually meditation like, even walking or, in a loud environment, meditation with your eyes open and actually even like when I was writing and then that led into like this month, which will be like mindfulness. So I kind of will listen to my lesson like every morning, and they're usually fairly short lessons. And then it'll give you like a little exercise or something to do for that day.
That is so cool. I love that program that they've come up with that, and so applicable, especially like you said with the meditation where it's an active one, because then that's something you can go and rely on when you're in the chaos of the race and everything.
Yeah. That actually was really incredibly helpful for me because it's those moments when, like, say you're riding and your heart starts to race a little bit. The one barn that I ride with, there's a older horse that kind of like lives in the area where the arena is, and every now and then he gets a wild hair and he just decides that he's going to come like tearing through the arena. So, and he'll do it like out of the blue. And so, it's nice because like, he does that and, you can just kinda like the phrase that they use is just drop your anchor. What do your feet feel? What do your hands feel? You see things with your eyes, hear things and, just let those thoughts come and go, and that's been really helpful because it does kind of like immediately bring your heart rate down, and I think that'll be really, really useful on these horses.
Oh, absolutely. So have you been able to notice a difference when you have practiced dropping your anchor in like your horse's response to the situation?
100%. Absolutely. And also very useful at work because work gets very stressful as well. We get days where we have multiple emergencies that come in, and that's really nice when I can just kind of calm things down a little bit and, all right, let's take 3 seconds here to quiet the brain down for a second. Now, what do I need to do? So, yeah, it's useful not just in writing, but, useful in lots of things in life.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can just clear your mind and then make good decisions after
Mhm.
that.
Courtney, do you have any other like mindset related like questions or topics like for Lauren that she could answer? Like, are there any tools that you feel like you're missing mentally for the race?
I know one thing, you told me to think about, Ellie, was you told me to think about like what are some things that you still struggle with. And one thing for me, and I get fussed at by my riding coach all the time for this, I have a bad habit of comparing myself to others and, getting a little bit of like imposter syndrome, and so, because that's like the one thing is I'll start talking about going and I'm like, and oh my God, and all these other people are going and they're real riders and they're so incredible and they do this and this and this. And then there's just me and I'm just a mom, and and so I do tend to get into, the situations where I do start comparing myself to other people, and that will kind of spiral me into, like, a little bit of, like, doubting myself and putting me into that position where I do have imposter syndrome, and I think that's kind of the biggest challenge that I face because when I do that, I really do feel all of a sudden like, I don't know that I really belong here."
Yeah, so that is something that I think a lot of us struggle with when we go to horse shows or when we go on rides with our friends. And it's completely normal. But the biggest thing for you to think about and to remind yourself is that you were selected, right? So you deserve to be there. They thought that whatever you presented them was more than enough to be there and to be competing and completing this journey. And I think that the July program that you're going to have with that mindset of mindfulness is going to be huge too for you to be able just to stay in this moment. And instead of getting in the comparison game, you'll just be able to focus a lot on where you are, how you're riding, how you're feeling on top of that horse. And just be able to, I would try to continually remind yourself that you were selected for a reason. And that reason had to do with your horsemanship skills. It had to do with your personal skills. It had to do with just the combination of everything that makes the package of you. It's not one single feature that somebody else may possess that's better. Your entire package is more than enough to be there.
That does make a lot of sense, yeah.
And Courtney, has there been a single day that's gone by since you were selected for this derby that you weren't doing something to help yourself get there?
I mean, probably not.
Yeah, definitely not. Like,
Absolutely.
you have
You're
put in
putting the
you
effort.
have more than put in the effort. You deserve to be there just as much, if not more, than anybody else who's there. I would be impressed if anybody else could have possibly been training harder than you have for this race.
I mean, I imagine that all of the other competitors are probably I couldn't imagine doing this and not taking it seriously. Is I mean, it's pretty big, but
You're so
eh,
humble.
they
You've worked your ass off. You have worked so hard.
well, thank you. I definitely I know that I am taking it very seriously.
Yes. Yes, you are. Yeah, just your whole mindset about the whole race is like I said earlier, it's just been so inspiring, and I just have been so proud of how hard you've wanted to work for this goal.
Yeah. And, I think the most exciting thing to me now is, not just getting over there and seeing that country and the horses and everything, but just getting over there and getting to meet all of, the people, the competitors, the organizers, and the herders. I'm so excited for that as well. I think that's going to be amazing. So I'm really excited about that now. Gotten to meet a couple of my fellow competitors here recently. I'm excited to get the to meet the rest of them soon too.
Yeah, you're almost there. You're gonna be there in 30 days, which is just crazy, you know? How
It's
and
wild.
I mean, really so did you start training for this race before you even got selected? Like, were you already doing things for the race?
Not I mean, I was riding, not really specifically, I okay, so what's funny was I told my riding coach, I was like, have you ever seen this, like, Mongol Derby thing?" She's like, "Yeah, I've heard of it, like, I've seen it." And I was like, "I sent in an application." And she was like, "You're crazy." And then a couple years later, I was like, "Hey, Dana, do you remember how I told you that I put in an application?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Did you get selected? Are you gonna do it?" And I was like, "I'm gonna do it, Dana." And
So
she's like, "Oh my
amazing.
god, you're crazy."
I love that.
I think, like, it was probably, like, 4 months into it, because when she said that, she was like, she's like, "You're crazy, but, if you wanna do it, I'm gonna help you do it." And, I think it was, like, 4 months into it, and, we had been working with you and was coming a long way with the fitness, maybe not even 4 months into it, but I'd come a long way with, my physical fitness and everything, and I'd gone to, like, the first riding intensive and everything. And, I was in a lesson and with her and was riding, and she looked at me and she was like, "Well, you're gonna be able to do it. That's
Aw.
so so yeah, but no, I hadn't done any specific training prior to, but I had told, my 2 best friends, and I had told, of course, my family, and, my and had told her, that was pretty much who I had told that, I was gonna do it, and, so spookily enough, if you believe in coincidences, my mother that's in the nursing home is my stepmother, but I've been very lucky. I've had two mothers. She's my stepmother. She really helped raise me. My real mother died when I was young. I was only like 13. But when I got the call for the interview, it was like on her birthday that I got
Wow.
that call.
That's special.
So it was one of those things. I was like, I don't know. Like, I just felt like I felt like everything just really, like, it lined up for a purpose.
That is so cool. If people pay attention, there's little things like that all over the place when they're on the right path, you know? What was your family's reaction when you told them that you were gonna be training for this race and going to Mongolia? Because you're gonna be there for what, like 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, I'll be there for about 3 weeks.
3 weeks,
That
yeah.
depends on which side of the family you ask.
Eh,
Yeah, my husband's really proud of me, but he's really nervous. I told you my husband or my husband, he's nervous, but he's proud of me. My son, he thinks it's really cool. He's also a little nervous. It was really funny. So my maternal side of the family, I told them, and they're all like the kind of the wild side of the family. And so I told them, and they're like, yeah, they were, like, so excited, and, like, my grandpa on that side of the family, like, he was a real horseman, and, like, you find pictures of him from the '50s, he looks like the Lone Ranger,
That's so
and
cool.
he would break and train horses, and even in his 80s, he was, like, driving teams of Percherons, pulling, like, farm-drawn equipment and stuff like that, so, he was a real horseman. So, yeah, that side of the family just thought it was amazing. On my dad's side of the family, my grandma called me, and she said, "What is this I hear about you riding horses in Mongolia?" And she said, "Well, I don't know where you got that from because this side of the family, we're all chickens."
Oh my god, I could so picture her as she said that. You said that in the perfect old lady voice.
So it was very funny, but everybody's very excited. I think everybody's excited to hear about it and see me go. But yeah, it was very funny. There were the wildly different reactions from the two different sides. It was pretty hilarious.
But it's so cool how much support you have. Like, that can make or break somebody's success for something as involved as this, you know what I mean? It's not like it's a one-day thing in the US. Like,
Hmm.
this is a lot. So, especially to have your immediate family, your husband and your son, so supportive. I mean, you're the luckiest woman in the world to have that.
Yeah, yeah, it's in and my husband really has gone out of his way to help with a lot. Really stepped up with, helping here and just taking care of a lot of the slack to give me the time because he is not a horse person at all. Prior to this year, like, did not feed my horses or lead them in and out or anything like that. And this year really has, like he'll come home and, bring the horses in and feed them and turn them out and, all so that he could allow me to have that extra time so that I could get the workouts in so he's picked up a huge amount of slack around the house to give me the time to do this. So he's been incredibly, incredibly supportive, incredibly helpful.
So cool. Lauren, do you have any other questions?
No, I thought that was excellent. Like, I really love your mindset, and I'm so excited to be able to hear afterwards
how all the preparation that you've done has prepared you for this and how it went. And then also, I just would love to hear if it reminds you at all from like experiences that you went through as a Marine.
Yeah, yeah, what I'm cross my fingers, knock on wood, everything everything goes good, but yeah, I'm excited. I told Ellie she can't air any of this until I look back.
Nope, it's a secret that we will not post this until August.
Exactly. It's going to be great too, because we'll be able to hear like the excitement of before of leading up to it and then the final excitement of completing it. So it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up to date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.